Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. I think good news for LSU football yesterday. It was announced that next week in SEC Media Days, Jayden Daniels, Josh Williams, and Mekhi Wingo will represent LSU. We know what Media Days is, big circus. This year it's in Nashville. We're going to send the morning show guys. We're going to send Matt. It'll be a content bonanza next week. And I think a lot of the personality is kind of gone from the league. I love Spurrier. Les was always good for a one-liner. Bielema was great in his time at the podium. You've got a lot of more buttoned up or robotic or even boring guys, I think, now in the league. I'm not, lining up to hear what Billy Napier has to say. I'm not super enthralled by Kirby Smart. I don't get the sense that Hugh Freeze is a guy that I want to sit and listen to very long. And Clark Lee, what are you going to get out of that? Sam Pittman's probably a guy you'd want to sit around and get a beer with. Is he going to crack me up at the stand or say something super noteworthy? Probably not. So I miss a little bit of that. But I do think it's important that LSU is sending its quarterback this year. That doesn't happen every year. Burrow went in 19, coming off the 18 season, and we certainly didn't know what we were in for. He said that he thought LSU could have the best offense in the country. I think a lot of people definitely rolled their eyes at that comment. Well, there it was. And then Zach Mettenberger went his junior year after a so-so second year. And maybe it was his senior year. He played his senior year here, the Butler year in Georgia. But a lot of times LSU does not send its quarterback. Etling didn't go. Brandon Harris didn't go. But I think it's good that the quarterback will represent LSU. I think it's good that LSU returns a guy that had produced a ton. And we'll talk a ton between now and Labor Day about Jayden Daniels and his performance at quarterback for LSU. We will certainly dissect it. Everybody will have their opinion. And I think it's fairly polarizing around here. There are a lot of people that feel like it's awesome to have a guy who runs like that at quarterback. He was super productive. LSU won a lot of games. Of course, you beat Alabama. Like, all that stuff is positive. But there is another subset of LSU fans that holds the ball too long, won't push it down the field, doesn't give the receivers a chance, depends on his legs too much, all that kind of stuff. And the truth is somewhere in the middle. I lean pretty heavily towards he's a really good player. But I admit readily that there are times where I wish he would let it go a little bit. But you can't debate whether or not he was productive last year. That's off the table. He was. He led the team in rushing. He made some huge plays. The offense hummed pretty well. It was a top 35 offense in the country. And he was a huge part of that. And I feel really, really good about LSU's quarterback situation with Jayden Daniels this season. I think that gives LSU a great chance to go out there and win every single game. I feel as good about LSU entering the season at quarterback as I have in a really, really long time. And we were talking about Dylan Cruz in the last segment and something that I got right 2 years in advance. I also said, filling in for, I think the guys on Sports Today maybe back in the day, that coming off of Burrow's 18 season, I felt as good about LSU's quarterback spot as I had in over a decade. Yeah, Mettenberger lit it up in 13, but in 12, he was pretty pedestrian. Yeah, Flynn had an awesome year in 7. He sat on the bench in 6. Yeah, Jamarcus was fantastic his junior year. He had to have Marcus Randall come bail him out in the swamp early in his career. Like, those guys exploded their final year. Burrow was a slow build, and he was pretty good. Now, we're grading on a low bar with some of the seasons that LSU had passing the football. But I felt great about LSU with Joe Burrow entering 19. Now, you could say I was just dead wrong because it was the greatest season anybody's ever seen, and I certainly didn't call for that. But I feel great about Jayden Daniels being the quarterback of the team, and I feel really good that the program trusts him to go to media days and represent it. Josh Williams is a heck of a representative of LSU. We've had him on this show. You've seen him in press conferences. He's a buttoned up kid, and he's going to do a great job, and he's a solid running back. Mekhi Wingo has All-American potential and maybe a star on the field. Those two guys don't play quarterback. Those two guys are not going to have the ball every play of LSU's offensive possession. That's the position that makes it go. You know that. I'm not telling you anything new. But the fact is that LSU sends a lot more cornerbacks and offensive linemen and linebackers than they do quarterbacks to this thing. And you don't get any points on the day before Labor Day, Sunday night, because your quarterback went to Nashville to answer some questions. I'm just saying, I like the fact that it's happening. I like the fact that the quarterback is a representative. Everybody's been so coached on how to handle themselves in this situation that a lot of times the content can get a little bit dull. But I just like the fact that LSU's quarterback's going to represent them. That's a storyline I'm going to pull out of it before anybody asks a question or anybody makes a comment or anything happens up in Nashville. We'll dive into what the offense is going to look like. That's an August conversation, and we'll do a lot of it next week, too, as we get into a lot of football. Josh Williams will represent the running backs in the program, and Mekhi Wingo will represent the defensive linemen in the program. Quarterback's the one that matters. I do want to spend a little bit of time on the other two guys, though. Josh Williams right now is the most proven back at LSU that you've got. Noah Cain had a nice career at Penn State, and obviously Diggs was really good at Notre Dame, and I think he'll be the bell cow back on this team. But Williams is the guy who's done the most in purple and gold. I know Hester loves him. I know he's going to get what's blocked, and they trust him in pass protection. They trust him to know where to be. But he's a guy that I think is going to have his production go down a little bit this year because of the addition of Logan Diggs. Wingo, I think, is getting a huge gift in his last season because Jaquelin Roy was good last year. He might have a monster next to him this year. And if what Brian Kelly said to the media is correct, and that teams are going to have to start their protection and their run blocking issues with Smith, well, you put that much focus on one guy, the guy next to him, going to start eating. And that's the hope for Mekhi Wingo this year. He was a guy that you signed out of Missouri who was a freshman all-conference player, and you thought this guy could be a pretty solid player for you. Could be a rotational piece, a depth piece on the defensive front. And he was much more than that last year. And I think he might even do more this year because of the guy standing next to him in Mason Smith. I think all focus is on Smith. Wingo may be the guy who has more production. Because if you do have to focus your offensive line approach around the big guy wearing 0, that frees up Mekhi Wingo to do some work. And I don't know that was necessarily the case all of last year. Jaquelin Roy was a good player. You certainly had to account for him. But I think Wingo may have been the one that made you think more. That's probably not the case this year. I certainly hope Mason Smith is able to live up to what he's been built up to be. I'm not a talent evaluator. I'm not a scout. I'm not a doctor either to look at his knee. But all reports are that Mason Smith is ready to roll, and that is good news for Mekhi Wingo. I'm sure we'll talk about that a ton next week when it's LSU's turn at SEC Media Days. Again, if you just jumping in the car and missed this, Jayden Daniels, Josh Williams, and Mekhi Wingo will be LSU's representatives in Nashville. Our representatives in Nashville will be T-Bob Hebert, Jacob Hester, and Matt Moscona. They'll be there for the morning show and the afternoon drive. We'll talk a ton of football tomorrow. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.